Good day, sir. I am Amelie Abad, Blackbee. I'm going to discuss a holistic understanding of peace and violence. According to Fritjof Capra in his widely acclaimed book, it says a new way of thinking about peace is so important today. The power of our own understanding the views of peace both as a condition and as a value cannot be underestimated. It is because our ideas shape our feelings and our action, as well as how we live and how we relate with others. Based on my own idea, the power of our understanding and views of peace both as a condition, as a value cannot be underestimated. So, ang atong kining understanding and views nag-connect na siya sa atong feeling ug action. So, also the way nga makarelate sa mga others like the first topic is circular views concept of peace and violence. The writings on the subject indicate that peace was defined as merely the absence of war or direct violence. The simplest and most widespread understanding of peace was that of absence of death and destruction. As a result of war and physical or direct violence, an understanding that was used as the initial point of departure in peace research. So, in 1966, French thinker and Raymond Aron defined peace narrowly as a condition of more or less lasting suspension of violent modes of rivalry between political units. It also defined peace as the absence of war or other direct from organized violence. An alternative view started to emerge beginning with the late 1960s. Attention started to shift from direct to indirect or structural violence, ways in which people suffer from violence built into society via its social, political, and economic system. It was realized that it was not only war and direct violence that caused death and discouragement. Structural violence also lead to death and suffering because of the condition that resulted from extreme poverty, structural violence also lead to death and suffering because of the condition that resulted from extreme poverty, starvation, avoidable disease, discrimination against minority groups, and denial of human rights. It way further realized that a world marked by said condition is a world devoid of peace and human security. It breeds anger and generates tension leading to armed conflict and war. In this condition, Juna Galtong, Renew the Peace theorists and researchers, argues that the structural violence occurs when the wealth of affluent nation group of individual is based on the labor and essential resources draw from nation, group, and individual who as a consequence are required to live diminished lives of deprivation. Move to second topic, toward a holistic concept of peace and violence. Peace workers have increasingly challenged this conventional view of peace and have declared that peace is not simply a lack of war or non-violence peace means the eradication of all facets of injustice. According to Juna Galtong, he explained that peace is the absence of violence, not only personal or direct, but also structural or direct. The manifestation of structural violence are the highly uneven distribution of wealth and resources, as we well as the uneven distribution of power to decide over the distribution of said resources. According to Juna Galtong, there are absence of violence. So, first, personal or direct violence. And the second is structural or indirect violence. The structural or indirect violence is the distribution of wealth and resources and distribution of power to decide over the distribution of said resources. This is the defining peace. First, negative peace, and second is positive peace. So, the example of negative peace: absence of direct physical violence, both macro and micro. So, we have direct violence. Example of direct violence: war, torture, child and human abuse. So, in this positive peace, a positive peace, presence of condition well-being and just relationships, social, economic, political, and ecological. So, we have structural violence. Example of structural violence: poverty poverty and hunger. Then we have social cultural violence. Example of social cultural violence: racism, sexism, religions, and intolerance. So, and the last one is ecological violence. So, we have example of ecological violence: population overconsumption. So, violence, the absence of personal direct violence as the presence of social justice. Galtong refers the formulations absence of violence and presence of social justice, thinking of the former as one that is not possibly defined condition, and he called it negative peace, whereas the latter is positive violence, the absence of personal direct violence as the presence of social justice. Galtong refers the formulations absence of violence and presence of social justice, thinking of the former as one that is not possibly defined condition, and he called it negative peace, whereas the latter is a possibly defined condition. Legalitarian distribution of power and resources, and he called it positive peace.